Hello and welcome to the Soul Navigation YouTube channel. I am your guest astrologer today, Cawnawyn Mor, and it is my pleasure to bring you the September 2025 transits. Today we will be tracking the moon, and I am so excited to bring you the obstacles we might overcome, the challenges we might have to face, as well as the blessings and many beautiful moments that await us for this month of September. And a big thank you to Meredith for inviting me back to share astrology with you. Without further ado, let's get started and look at September. So September 1st, this chart, we start off with our sun at 9 degrees of Virgo and our moon up at 26 degrees of Sagittarius. So on September 1st, the moon will be trining Mercury at 28 degrees of Leo, as well as Chiron at 26 degrees of Aries, creating this beautiful grand fire trine. So this moon is fiery, it's excited, it wants to get out, it wants to talk, it wants to think big, dream big. And with this interplay between Chiron and with Mercury, I feel like this is a real opportunity to expand the mind and think about ways that we can maybe heal each other and talk about our journeys, talk about our unique experiences. And in that conversation, in that exposure to new ideas, new cultures, that's bringing us an opportunity to heal ourselves. Maybe it's asking for the advice of a mentor, or looking up and being curious about a different culture, or something that you've just been excited or inspired about, something that has made your dreams get bigger. So this first day of September is bringing us this beautiful energy. Now, we do have the sun in the same sign for the beginning part of September, all the way up until the equinox, co-present with the south node in the sign of Virgo. So as the sun is going to approach the south node in Virgo, we're going to start seeing those south node themes echo throughout the community, throughout the collective. So for us, that's looking like, okay, what does south node in Virgo mean? These are the perfectionist tendencies. This is kind of putting us into a place of shame or guilt in order to humble ourselves, being forced into a place of service, maybe because we genuinely want to create that service, do that for other people. But what can create is this mentality of having to serve and serve and serve and serve and then be squashed. This is especially important to remember because in September, we are dealing with eclipse season. So welcome to eclipse season. September 1st, right out of the gate, we are in eclipse season because the eclipse is coming on the 7th. So we're nearing this eclipse. Already the eclipse energy is very, very strong. So what is that, right? Especially when we're working with the south node in Virgo, this can look like being physically eclipsed. What is an eclipse? In this case, the lunar eclipse coming up, the earth is going to pass over the sun's light and block the sunlight from hitting the moon. Therefore, that beautiful full moon we're used to in the sky is not going to be full. It's going to be covered and it's going to have that red glow to it. And so in our own lives, this can look like literally being forgotten, being squashed, put in the background and eclipsed, right? If we think about the literal expression of what an eclipse does, this can look like people falling from power, reputation souring, right? And if we also think about south node energy, this is the letting go, the purging. Whereas the moon is coming closer to that north node, which is like the what are we bringing in? So there's this yin yang balancing energy of what is it that we're trying to let go of. Our sun, our soul in the sign of Virgo is really exploring these themes. What kind of negative self-talk, what kind of anxiety spiral, or trying to make the perfect structure, the perfect system, and always acting in a place of giving and giving and giving and giving. Virgo has a tendency to like always think it's never good enough and always aiming for that higher level of mastery, which is really inspiring because it's why Virgo is able to finesse its talent or skill down to such an incredible level. However, it's always kind of stuck in that place when it's in its shadow side of never being good enough. And so that's why it's kind of always striving for that perfection it can never achieve. And so how can we let go and shed some of that? Also shedding the need for the control here, right? To control the system, to make it whatever it needs to be in order to be perfect. We're all exploring these themes right now. And what I love is that we start the month with this fiery Sagittarius moon, inspiring us to like open our minds to something that could create that healing and create that communication that is inspiring and joyful. So this is especially nice actually for fire signs on this first day. I really see our fire signs really benefiting. But I will say Saturn has already now moved retrograde back into Pisces. So Saturn moved into Aries back in May, on May 24th. How has your life shifted since May 24th, I ask you? Definitely something to reflect on, especially in the midst of eclipse eclipse season. Well, now it is back in the sign of Pisces, and it's been going retrograde since early July. What I will say is this is pretty tough for my mutable sign. So even though Sagittarius is benefiting from having the moon lighting up its beautiful sign, the Saturn here, now that's creating a square to the moon. So that feels pretty tough. That can feel like an authority figure kind of coming at odds with you, trying to confront you. This can look like responsibilities and burdens getting away of all those dreams. So Sagittarius doesn't have as easy as maybe Leo or Aries does in this instance. And then also my other mutable signs. So Virgo, right? Yes, it's your season, but you're dealing with the South Node in your sign. And now you're dealing with Saturn opposing your sign again. And then also my Gemini energy. You're already dealing with Uranus going through Gemini. Now we have Saturn squaring all of the Gemini. So if you have anything in these late mutable signs, this is going to be a little tougher for you. And this might feel like an echo of times before because Saturn has spent quite a bit of time the last 2 years in the sign of Pisces. This is the final time that it will return back via retrograde. It's going to move forward into Aries going forward. We get sort of this echo of the past. What are some things that you need to wrap up and some things you need to complete, chapters you need to close, books you need to close, right? What are the things we're trying to re-examine in order to integrate as wisdom and move forward in our lives as we are embracing this new season of Saturn in Aries? We're not there yet. And now we're given a big dose, a big reminder of this. With that moon coming into a square that day to Saturn, that's going to look a little tough. But I really love that around noon Pacific time, we're getting this gorgeous fire trine. So it might look like a flash of brilliance and then the sort of cold reality hitting. So that splash of cold water, right? So just be prepared for that and recognize that that doesn't make the ideas, the inspiration any less valid. It just is probably a sobering reality check of how am I actually going to make this work. Now, when we move to September 2nd, the moon has now moved into Capricorn and it's going to trine our sun, but it's also trining Mercury still because the moon, of course, moves the fastest out of all of the planets, the moon being a luminary, and Mercury is moving very quickly at this point because it's catching back up to the sun after its retrograde season. And this is a big day because Mercury is the ruler of our sun during Virgo season, and now it has just shifted signs. So we might feel this tone shift. We might feel this refocusing. Mercury in Leo has a harder time just because when it does express itself, it is very self-focused and it's not as interested in data that has to do with things outside of its own experience. So when it moves into Virgo, now it gets to operate in its home sign in an earth sign. So it's taking the tangible data, refining it down, focusing it into what is most important and discarding the rest. So this is now changing the tone of our sun's expression. This is our collective soul's journey right now. When Mercury moves into Virgo, our attention might become more focused. We might be more interested in providing feedback or critique. So be aware of that. If you start suddenly receiving critique or feedback or advice you didn't ask for. Mercury being in Virgo, though, this is going to make our movements more precise. Perhaps this looks like tuning up our transportation, getting our computers a little more organized, especially after the retrograde we had. It might look like finally getting those files cleaned out, and would definitely recommend that you do this, especially with the South Node there. What can we maybe be purging, letting go of, getting rid of? Is there extra just stuff or cookies on the internet or just data that doesn't need to be crowding up your system anymore? And that goes for our mind, Mercury, as well. So what kind of thought patterns can we get rid of? What types of self-sabotaging circles and spirals are we finding ourselves in? Can we maybe examine that and look at it from a more objective point of view and start refining into what is actually serving us and letting go of what is not? Virgo is also a very health-minded sign, and so this might look like examining your routines, your structures of your health, how you take care of yourself, how you rest, how you energize, and examining those with a closer eye and realizing there might be room for improvement here. Virgo ultimately wants to create a system that is going to help and serve a better purpose, a larger purpose. So taking a look at our systems might be something that Mercury is inspiring us to do, and the moon in Capricorn is certainly supportive of that. So it's going to be making a trine to Mercury and the sun and later the South Node over the next 2 days as the moon moves through Capricorn. And so already our moon, our heart, our body, right, is in an alignment with this. Let's really look at what the foundation of our life is, those small, tiny incremental habits and steps, and how can we improve the system in order to rise to whatever ambition we're trying to meet. And the moon in Capricorn is practical. It's also anxious. It wants to make sure that all the bases are covered, that all the contingency plans are in place. So this might look like a time for you where you're feeling inspired to do that. Of course, with all this earth energy, that's going to be very supportive for Earth right now. So that means Taurus as well. And Taurus, you have a few breaths of fresh air before Uranus is going to re-enter your sign later this year. So kind of get a break a little bit from the chaos. And I wonder if you've been feeling some of that, like, okay, now I can kind of organize my life together. Virgo, again, remembering that we're not shaming ourselves, guilting ourselves with that present of the South Node here. It's not about that. It's about taking that objective point of view and recognizing there's always room for improvement, and we are human. We are not perfect. You're doing the best you can. And of course, Capricorns, I think, are going to benefit from this as well. Water signs, too, will benefit. Of course, you get the benefit of having Jupiter in a water sign all year long. So my Pisces, my Cancer, and my Scorpios are definitely reaping those rewards with Jupiter. But as I said earlier, too, Pisces is having a little bit of a harder time now that Saturn has re-entered your sign. And this will be for the remainder of this year. So as we're closing out this year, Pisces, you're still dealing with that Saturnian responsibility and burden kind of weighing heavy on your shoulders. So this might feel even more intense or more necessary for you to adjust your systems going forward. Now, September 3rd, the moon is still in Capricorn. It's now making a more harmonious aspect to the nodal axis. So it's kind of in support of where we need to get out of our comfort zone and grow. But something I wanted to mention, we have Mars in Libra at 17 degrees, and that will be moving into this square with Jupiter at 18 degrees of Cancer. So this Libra to Cancer square, right? Mars being in Libra. In its shadow form, this might look like Mars doing some things to try to make peace and make everybody happy, but as a result, it's letting its own passions, its own desires, its own opinions or needs go by the wayside. And that can really rub us the wrong way when maybe all we've been doing is caring for everybody else. And Jupiter in Cancer is really trying to create this healthier belief system, this expanded vision around, well, what is peace? What is my sanctuary? What is care and nurturing actually look like? And this Mars in Libra can maybe awaken us to areas of our life where maybe we've been making peace with everything, but now we're starting to feel resentful because our own needs aren't being met. This can also look like potentially people who are just trying to gloss over the problems and just pretend like everything's fine. And Jupiter in Cancer says, no, there are real emotions here that need to be felt, that need to be expressed. And that's a direct conflict. So remembering that when Mars is making these squares, the anticipation, the leading up to it are the points where it's most aggravating, most irritating. Mars is heat too, right? So those confrontations getting hotter, the feelings of irritation getting stronger, and the resentment and the bitterness just get like mounting. So in these days leading up to September 3rd and 4th, as Mars is moving into this square with Jupiter, just remember that this might be coming up for you. And so where is this potentially an opportunity to deepen those relationships and recognize that balance and harmony doesn't have to come at the expense, right, of self. That's part of the balancing act too. And so when things are thrown out of proportion, how can we bring them back into alignment so everyone can feel that sense of care and nurturing? I will also say, because the moon is in Capricorn, it's going to be opposing Jupiter. So this is also highlighting this need Capricorn, right, where the moon is to provide for, to create a solid foundation, to build a tradition, to make sure everybody's needs are being met, maybe financially, maybe, those of us that are the caretakers in the breadwinner sense of our families, right? Or if we're striving and going after our work and putting in the extra hours and hustling, have we really been taking care of ourselves? Or are we putting out our energy constantly to try to meet everybody else's needs? This is kind of highlighting that polarity of, going to work and hustling harder for whatever that goal, that big dream is, versus having a place where we can actually rest. Jupiter is challenging all of us right now. What is rest? What is that sense of sanctuary? It's bringing that once again back into alignment. And Mars here might be creating an instance, a confrontation, a challenge that is inciting that awareness to come into play and make us realize like, oh, I can't keep ignoring this. I would be really mindful right now if you're having issues around stress that are manifesting in the body, especially heat related or irritation or rash like symptoms, Mars is going to show us where we need to bring ourselves back into alignment, where we need to potentially detox a little bit. And this can go too far too, right? Because we have the South Node in Virgo. We're not trying to get rid of everything. We're not trying to completely wipe out our system, but Mars is going to show up in the body, especially with the moon's influence. And so maybe all of this stress and pressure that you've been feeling, trying to provide for everyone, trying to do all the things, maybe it's not showing up in a relationship or a confrontation, but suddenly your body starts exhibiting symptoms that are really unhealthy and alarming, scary, and sudden. So be really mindful of this as we start this month, and don't let these things go by the wayside. Don't let them get ignored. Get them checked out and try to see if there's a mind-body connection here, and if that easing of stress, taking that step back, allowing the space for rest is what is necessary in order to heal. Mars being in this air signs are having it a little tough right now. You might be coming across a little bit fiery or a bit too honest, too out there, too frankly revolutionary too, with Uranus being in Gemini right now, with Mars being in Libra, and Pluto being in Aquarius. So we have these three pretty heavy hitting planets being the only planets in air signs. And that's kind of influencing our air sign people to be kind of like tired of the status quo. I'm going to say the thing. I'm going to fight for the thing. I'm going to remind everyone of what the stakes are, and I'm going to shake things up. So my air sign people, I'd be really curious if you want to put in the comments below, like how maybe you've decided to change, or if you've noticed a different like response to how you're choosing to approach your problems, your challenges right now. If you've been motivated, or if you've been maybe overtired or anxious, like especially anxious right now because you have these planets in your signs influencing all of that energy. And while the first day of the moon in Capricorn was a little easier, the moon opposing Jupiter isn't necessarily a bad aspect, because it is with Jupiter, and Jupiter is our great benefic, but this could really come to challenge your belief system, and sometimes that can feel kind of scary. We might want to put up the defense. So my Capricorns and Cancer energy, and frankly my Aries and Libra as well, dealing with the planets you have, this is a bit of a tougher day for you because you're having all of these opposing and tense square aspects operating in your chart, kind of inciting you to make a shift, make a change in a better direction, speak up for yourself. Moving on to September 4th, the moon will enter Aquarius and be conjunct with Pluto, which is a deep place for the moon to be because it's illuminating those things internally that have been hidden, have been frankly shameful, or things that we don't want to look at. This can be taboo. This can be like obsessions or possessiveness being highlighted here. And the moonlight is bringing that awareness and attention to it. This can also, of course, show up in the collective too, where the moon is going to pass over Pluto and create an attention toward, well, how do we feel about the way that the trajectory that society is moving? And it could look like some plutonic figures, like people that have done scandalous things or backhanded deals, or all of these like secret politics or secret money schemes going on in the background being illuminated somehow. And then the collective is forced to like reconcile with that internally. And because of where Pluto and Neptune and Uranus are right now, it's a really like fascinating dynamic, because we have Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius, we have Neptune at 1 degree of Aries, and we have Uranus at 1 degree of Gemini. And I will add, Uranus is about to station retrograde. So Uranus is moving very slowly. Neptune is moving very slowly and has been in retrograde since July. And Pluto will stay at 1 degree of Aquarius the entire month of September. So it is moving so slowly. What does this mean? Well, first of all, our 3 furthest away heaviest hitters are in this sextile trine together in new air and fire signs. We are seeing the beginnings of a new era, a new chapter upon us. And these are generational influences. These are influences that go way beyond the scope of just just our individual lives. They certainly might touch our individual lives, but I think we can agree as a collective, we are seeing major shifts happening in the world. And wherever you stand on that, of course, I'd be so interested what you think these shifts are headed towards. But remembering that Pluto in Aquarius can bring a bit of a doom and gloom feeling about this. So as much as the air and the fire might feel like, no, we don't want anything else on fire. We're quite done with the fire. That feels really, really scary. Air and fire is also inspiration. It's adding air, oxygen to those fires of passion and desire, and great big dreams might come out at this time as well that are helpful and fuel society forward. This is rocket fuel, and it's rocket fuel carrying the collective. So when the moon passes over one of these planets, now that becomes a very intimate trigger for how are we reconciling with all this? How are we grappling with these changes in society? When the moon's going to go over Pluto in Aquarius, this is bringing to light all of those futuristic themes that we're seeing, the technology that's going so rapidly and feels very scary. This looks like us as a collective standing up to oppression, standing up to corruption, standing up to powers and people of authority that we no longer trust and don't want running the show anymore, and also exposing the secrets that have been running our society in the background, hidden in the shadows. So as the moon passes over this place, we're doing that as within, so without. It's happening internally, where we're exposing that side of ourselves that we need to see in the light, right? Bringing that out of shadow. But we also see it on this collective stage. And it's challenging us to see those dynamics playing out within ourselves and outside of ourselves on the Creator Collective, and sort of come to what is the meaning of all of this. Mars at this point is making that exact square to Jupiter. So when we think about what are those elements of justice as well, like what does true justice mean? Is that being enacted, or are people putting up their walls and protecting themselves and nobody's actually having a discourse around like, no, what if we try to work together here? Jupiter in Cancer, when it's threatened, it's going to put its walls up and say, no, thank you. I don't want that. That's not what I believe. That's not what I adhere to. That's not where I stand. And Mars in Libra in its highest form is acting as a great judge that says, you're coming to me with this, and you're coming to me with this, and you're coming, and it tries to balance out all of those things by saying, this is what is just, this is what is fair. And all of this is being triggered right now by the moon, the most intimate place coming into contact with all of these energies. And as I said, moving forward on September 5th, this will be when Uranus goes retrograde at 1 degree of Gemini. So this cannot be understated, okay? When Uranus goes retrograde, because it is such a slow-moving planet, these are huge transits because it's now slowed to a stop, and it's like being pulled back in a slingshot right now. There's so much pressure and energy happening, and then it's going to move backward. And so while we have it in this standstill, it's like reverberating out its power much stronger, greater, louder than it is when it's simply transiting through a sign. And now, because we have it retrograding in a new sign for the first time in so many years, right? We had it in Taurus for the last 7 years, since 2019. Now it's moved into Gemini. So this is the first station we get in the sign of Gemini, and it's going to give us a really big clue as to what the heck are we going to see in the next 7 years with this pathway of Uranus through Gemini. It's a big, big time. This can look like huge surprises out there in the world. This can look like, when I think of Uranus, I think of lightning, but so it's instantaneous, it's flashes of surprise. We can't prepare for Uranus. Like, as much as I want to tell you, like, prepare for surprises, Uranus hits us where we least expect it. Sometimes this can look like grand inspiration, look like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just thought of this genius idea. It is kind of genius. It's mad genius, right? Mad scientist kind of energy where, alas, I have the solution, and it can come to us like a muse. But it can also be those cataclysmic events that shape our lives forever, whether through tragedy or shock, complete foundations crumbling apart. In this case now, we have it in an air sign, so I'll be interested to see how maybe air pollution comes up, how we use air as an energy source, the air we breathe, where that is coming into play. It could also look like anxiety, right? Like really becoming such a prominent part, the psyche, and how we're dealing with collective anxiety, where that comes from, where that extra energy comes from. Being in an air sign, this could bring up neurological issues and that kind of awareness around where that's all headed towards, and where we, as a collective are understanding that deeper, and new insights might be coming out of, where our neurons are firing and how our brains are working. And then of course, this is going to probably very much be around technology. So being ready for things like outages and cybersecurity leaks and hacking and things like that. These are surprises in technology. That's the good, where the invention can happen and hopefully fuel our society forward in a beneficial way. And the hard stuff, the scary stuff, the stuff that we don't want to picture, right? That comes out of nowhere and throws our life upside down. So be really mindful around this time, especially September 5th, that we have this huge transit going on, talking to all those major planets. The moon will have moved off of Pluto at this point, but as it's moving into the sign of Aquarius, it's not so comfy with those Virgo planets, which of course is where we all are in Virgo season. So things feel a little uncomfortable. They feel like stuff hit us in our blind spot. We weren't ready for that. We weren't prepared mentally for that. So give yourself some grace around this time. Recognize these surprises are coming. Whatever you can do, like on those first few days, to kind of organize yourself in case, catastrophe or surprises come, the better, right? The better we can prepare. We can't prepare for everything, but we can at least try to make our systems work and operate a little bit better for us. Now, as we move into September 6th, as well as September 7th, we are now moving into the moon entering Pisces. So on September 7th, we are going to have our lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees. This lunar eclipse is happening just 3 degrees away from that nodal axis, which is sitting at 18 degrees of Virgo and Pisces. So the sun is at 15 degrees Virgo, opposing the moon at 15 degrees of Pisces. So my mutable signs, this eclipse is hitting you, right? And will be for the next year, because as the nodes move through Pisces and Virgo, my mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, you guys are all going through this collective evolutionary shift together. Oh my gosh, what does that mean, right? Well, it means you're going to be confronted with things that push you out of your comfort zone. You're going to be confronted with obstacles that you don't know if you have the strength to face, that you try to overcome. It could really highlight a lot of the patterns and behaviors that have led you to where you are now. And it's giving you the choice of, are you ready to change those things or not, right? You might meet incredible mentors and leaders in your life that really shape you going forward, and be given lots of fantastic opportunities to really up-level your life. And you might also be faced with examples of the things that you no longer align with anymore and don't want and want to get rid of. And you alleviate your load a little bit, get rid of some of the baggage and let go of those things so you can move forward. But with that comes grief, right? Any loss, you're going to have to cope with that. So this lunar eclipse in Pisces is definitely a big one. We have it really squished in there with Mercury in Virgo, just a couple degrees away from the sun, getting closer every day. Saturn, of course, has re-entered Pisces, right? So this is really hitting my mutable sign people. I will say also my earth and my water signs, you're probably definitely feeling this as well pretty strongly. So if you have a lot of earth and water placements, fire and air, you're still, frankly, my fire signs, you've got Venus in Leo for a lot of the beginning of this month. So that's kind of adding a nice flavor to all of my fire signs, although Sagittarius, because you're mutable, you're getting the hit of that eclipse pretty heavily. But Leo and Aries, there's a lot more like dream and potentially like beauty, right? With Neptune and Aries, with Venus and Leo, you're getting a bit more of the like, well, how can we make this better? And how do we make it more beautiful and more interesting and more fun? And how can we focus more on the positive, right? And we need you. We need that positive reminder, and we need those friends that can come in and remind us of the dream and the mission and what collectively we can all create beautifully together. But I think a lot of the signs are really feeling this one because we have those heavy hitters in our air sign planet. So you guys are all coping with that. And then the earth and the water signs are feeling this. Cancer, because Jupiter's been hanging out your sign, I think you do have it a little easier, and Jupiter's in a really comfy place with the nodes, with the moon, with the sun right now. I do really like that the moon during this time of the eclipse is moving into this trine with Jupiter. So that kind of feels like there's a bit of hope here, right? Like there's still a bit of optimism. Whatever's coming for us at the eclipse, maybe we're having to face the fact we have to let go of something, we have to purge something. Full moons, right? That's what this is. It is a full moon. When we have that awareness, we lose a sense of innocence, gullibility, naivete about whatever it was that was before. Just remembering that, you might be feeling feelings of grief around this. Perhaps our belief belief systems are being expanded, whether we like it or not, to encompass a greater truth, a deeper meaning to life. We recognize in order to nurture ourselves, to love ourselves better, like these changes are necessary. So I would encourage you to look sort of at the bright side if you can, if you're dealing with a lot of difficulty around these first few days of September, and recognizing that the things shedding in your life may need to in order to progress forward. Obviously, if you're dealing with tragedy or really hard things, I think Jupiter could inspire us to take better care of ourselves during this time, really go the extra mile to be proactive. Maybe it comes to our health or our family's health, showing them that little bit of extra compassion and care and comfort. As a collective, Jupiter's kind of reminding us all that we are in this together. We are bonded, right? And Jupiter in Cancer wants to protect each other. If at all possible, I would encourage you to hold on to those truths as well, whatever it is you might be understanding and going through. And how can you approach life going forward after this, Uranus transit, after the eclipses have really set in and their meaning is starting to take shape? How can we love ourselves through that a little bit better and care and nurture ourselves, nurture others a little bit better? Now, moving to September 8th, the moon will enter Aries. And so this is kind of giving another boost to my fire sign people as well as my air sign people. And it's coming right into contact with that Neptune. So earlier we had it talk to Pluto, sort of instigating the energy around that sextile, and trine between our heavy hitting planets in Aquarius, Aries, and Gemini. Now moon is going to cross over Neptune. And this is beautiful, right? This is dreamy. This is, this can look like kind of tapping into that space of what that bigger dream is up in the future, kind of adding to that hope a little bit more as well, of there's something that lies beyond this struggle. I can do it because the thing that I'm aiming for is so important to me, is so driving, is so, and like lighting up my passion. And so I would encourage you to sit in those feelings and, use them for all they're worth, right? Because it can also emphasize the confusion with everything. Like, well, I know I have this dream, I know I feel these feelings, but how on earth am I going to get there when all of this other stuff is going on? Holding on to that fact that the desire that we hold inside of us is the clue that that is what we are meant to manifest, that we are capable. We wouldn't be having those desires if we didn't have a way we could get there, but it's up to you to figure that out, right? There is a way. When there is a will, there is a way. And I feel like with Neptune in Aries, it's inspiring all of us to take a look at where our drive comes from, where that inner passion, that inner light comes from, how it keeps our fire burning. And hopefully the moon here can bring some awareness into that area. We've just gone through this transformation. We're in the midst of eclipse season together. By the way, are you journaling right now? Please be journaling right now. Please be writing down the people you're meeting, the portals that are opening, the opportunities coming for you, the ones that are closing, whatever open doors and closed doors are happening in your lifetime, whoever might be leaving you and coming in. These are such important times, and the ripple effects of eclipse season last far, far beyond just this 2 to 4 week period that we call eclipse season. So these are big, big transits, big transitions in your life. We're standing on a threshold together. So what do you want it to be on the threshold of? September 8th, when the moon is moving through these first degrees of the whole zodiac, this is that birthplace of what the dream actually looks like. So don't lose sight of it. Remember it. Hold it as that flame guiding you inside. Now, September 9th and 10th, the moon's going to be going through those later degrees of Aries, and it's going to oppose Mars. So at the beginning of that transit, right on the 8th, I think our fire signs are liking that a little bit more. The air signs might be liking that a little bit more. But then we get it opposing Mars, and it's also going to be conjunct Chiron. So this is really irritating that wound, right? Chiron being the wound that we carry with us throughout our lives. This could look like a trigger because it's in opposition to Mars. This could look like coming into contact or into confrontation with somebody or something that is really opposed to our mission, that says, why are you doing that? That's like, nobody's done that before. Like, why are you wasting your time? What kind of big dream is this, right? So we're met with this hopeful, oh, this might be what it's all for. And then immediately we're coming up against, well, why are you doing that? Like, that's not what everybody else is doing. That's not what's cool. That's not what's considered appropriate, or that might be too big, too loud, too crazy. Don't listen to that. Like, I mean, like you feel that dream inside of you for a reason, okay? And if there's a way that you can incorporate some kind of activity that is healing for you, right? So this is kind of coming up against that Mars and saying, okay, I'm going to integrate movement and energy into this. Maybe it looks like making a Pinterest board or making that first step, writing that first page of the book, trying to sing that song and take a vocal lesson, or, whatever that like first little tiny step into that dream might look like. Meet Mars with more action. That could be especially healing for you, and saying the I did it story in just these like small ways. This is kind of building on the Virgo theme as well. Like Virgo is about the small steps that lead to the big picture, those tiny habits, right? Great book, by the way. Atomic Habits is a fabulous book, and I feel like that is very Virgo coded. So what are those atomic habits that lead to that much larger place of whatever that big dream is, that mission that you might have is? And maybe that mission just looks like creating a place that you really love to live, feeling safe in your own body, safe in your own skin, safe in a relationship. Like it can be those first steps, going out and making a call, being seen, perceived somewhere for the first time in a long time, dressing yourself up, learning how to DIY part of your house, right? It can be that just first little moment of discovery of, well, what does this feel like, and make it playful, make it fun. It's just the very beginning, the infancy of your journey. But remember that you might face, an opposition in the form of relationship, somebody saying, I need this from you. This is not going to work. Why are you thinking that? And just recognizing like some of that advice and critique that we didn't ask for might really like dampen our spirit a little bit. Persist past that, right? Recognize when you're triggered inside. How can we move through that? Recognize the emotions, that they're there for a reason, see the block, and overcome it. Now, on September 10th, the moon is going to move out of Aries and into Taurus, where it's going to be in a harmonious aspect to our Sun, our Mercury, and Virgo. It's also going to be in a nice aspect, of course, to our Pisces planets. It's going to be in a nice aspect to our Cancer planet of Jupiter, right? So my Earth and my water signs like it when the moon moves out of Aries, out of Chiron, out of Mars opposition and into Taurus. But something I really want to highlight here is the sun will be exactly on the south node. So this is really highlighting, right? What are we collectively moving away from? What are we trying to shed? What are we trying to purge? Those, tendencies, those mindsets that we talked about at the beginning of this video. Go back and rewind to those early days of September when I talked about what the nodal axis is bringing us. This is illuminating that place. So where is Virgo in your chart, right? Like get your natal chart and figure out where is Virgo, because there's something about this house placement, your arena of your life. If you have any Virgo planet, something is asking you to let go, to purge something. And this could be really a next step in your evolutionary growth, wherever it is you're trying to reach for, the things that we know keep us healthier and stronger and make our lives better, but maybe just feel a little bit out of reach. We have to let part of us die, frankly, and let go of that part of us in order to step into that next evolution of the soul. This day, which is September 10th, is going to be likely an illumination, potentially on a collective level, right? Where we see this playing out like, oh, this Virgo tendency that was somebody's whole life, like really did not serve them well. Do we see how damaging that can be? And then also remembering that the North Node is in Pisces. So the sun is standing in opposition now to the North Node. And what is the North Node asking us? Asking us to surrender, that faith is messy, life is messy, and there's no boundaries. There's really no structure. There's no control. We have to accept our place and surrender to the fact that we are one tiny small human in the scope of this grand wide universe. And what does that do? Well, it can humble us, certainly. It can make us aware of, how important service to something much larger than ourselves can really be. And it doesn't have to come from this place of the shame and the guilt we might be holding on to internally, or trying to make things like work better on a collective. It can just come from a place of compassion and of love and of merging with people's experience and reality and learning from them. So the sun standing in opposition to that might even look like you being in that North Node, right? Especially my Pisces people, like we're kind of all looking to you right now. How are you merging? How are you understanding with compassion? And how are you acting in service to others, showing that love? Now, granted, Saturn being in that sign, I want to emphasize, we're also kind of getting the hard part of that. Like, it's an interesting dynamic with the North Node and Saturn together, because we're seeing both sides of these things, and we're seeing how maybe the energy of Pisces, especially when it is so unstructured, might not be serving us. This is also calling attention to our oceans as well, right? So like, how have we not been compassionate to our seas, our rivers, our, water creatures? Like, these are all themes that are coming up as well, and we have to start dealing with creating boundaries, structures, rules, laws to protect those things. And North Node in Pisces is remembering that, like, we're caretakers of this planet. We're caretakers of our families and our loved ones and our friends. And it's not meant to critique and adjust and refine all of these people. We love them as they are, imperfect and human. I really feel like these themes might be coming out pretty strongly. Moon is, of course, going to cross over Chiron earlier in that day as it exits Aries and moves into Taurus. Hopefully, as the moon settles into Taurus, like I said, all my water and my earth signs are feeling the what was that last couple days, and we can kind of ease into that. Also, the moon is in its exaltation in Taurus, so it's much more comfy here. It feels more secure, it feels more stable. This might just be looking like doing something that makes you feel a little bit more grounded. Go touch some earth, for goodness sakes, right? Like, after the couple days that we've started this month with, the first 10 days of the month, it's time to get real, get practical, get grounded in some sense of reality, and rest with the knowledge of, like, okay, this is where I am in the present moment. Okay, so shuttling a couple days ahead, September 11th, the moon will still be crossing through Taurus, and then September 12th, the moon will enter those last degrees of Taurus and also cross into Gemini, where it will trigger Uranus. So whatever we just experienced with that Uranus transit, September 12th, we're going to see the moon cross into Gemini, talk to Uranus, kind of rattle up all those energies again and remind us what just, has been going on, and maybe bring some more light into those Gemini themes that we talked about. This can also look like human relations too, like how we're communicating with one another, how we're traveling to one another. This is, of course, the technology that we're using to talk to each other, to integrate our society further. And I wanted to highlight this too, because the moon will move into Gemini. Uranus is in Gemini, now stationing very, very slowly. And the ruler of Gemini and our sun, right? We don't do sun sign astrology. It keeps going here. The ruler of those signs, Mercury, is going to be Cazimi the sun on this day. It's going to move right into the sun's energy. Now, Meredith did a fabulous video on Cazimis and under the beams and combustion, so I totally recommend you looking at that if you have this natally in your own natal chart, but also collectively what this means. We had Mercury go retrograde previously in the sign of Leo over the summer. It's now moved out of us and it's catching up to the sun. So as it comes up to the sun, Mercury kind of gets shut down and then blown really, really loud, and then kind of shut down again, and then eases out from that sun's influence, and the communication gets a little more steady, okay? And so Mercury is informing the moon's expression, Uranus's expression, and the sun's expression, and the south node's expression. So while it gets squashed, this might look like real problems with technology. This might look like the email went missing, or like, where did the data bank go? Or did nobody check these numbers, right? Did nobody fill up the gas tank? Like, it can kind of feel like a Mercury retrograde a little bit. Where is the Mercury? And then as it meets up with the sun, suddenly things are blown really, really loud, because the sun and the Mercury are together, just sort of expanding that light energy, and it's filling Mercury with light. So that can look like suddenly things are really, when you're like turning up the volume in your headphones and you're like, where is it? And then suddenly the music blares and you're like blasted. That can be like that energy. So be ready for these kind of extremes for Mercury retrograde-esque. It's not actually retrograde, right? But we're dealing with Uranus in a Mercury ruled sign going retrograde, going extremely slowly. So it's going to feel kind of whack like that. That means my Mercury ruled signs, Gemini and Virgo, this is hitting you especially. This is also going to hit because it's in Earth. You're going to hit our other signs going on, like they're all getting talked to with this Mercury Cazimi. These are both mutable signs, so Sagittarius and Pisces are feeling this. And then of course my air signs, as we talked about, you've got these heavy hitters, and now the moon is coming in and triggering that as well. So just be really mindful around this time, even more more important to do that grounding work a couple days before and during, right? Send that electricity somewhere. Send that anxiety to a place where the earth can kind of swallow it back up and you can feel steady and grounded. It's going to be so easy to get caught up in the data in our heads and the spiral patterns and the going down the rabbit holes and the anxiety, right? Like, try to find some sense of what is real, what is present, what is right in front of you. Now, September 13th and 14th, the moon is moving through the sign of Gemini. It's actually going to trine with Mars, and also it's going to sextile Chiron because Mars is moving into an opposition with Chiron. So we talked a little bit about this earlier because Mars was slowly moving into the opposition when the moon traveled over Chiron at the end of Aries. Now that opposition is really forming, but the moon is in a more supportive aspect. So that could have looked like whatever was going on before is suddenly given a new piece of information because moon is in Gemini, a new partner, a new piece of data that like suddenly makes things make more sense, or an equation is figured out, or it looks like, oh, that was the key piece that we needed in order to make this work. So I see the moon as being very supportive here of whatever that conflict is, because we're talking Chiron and Mars, right? Like, this is our energy. This could look like our physical body and some kind of a wound around it. But this is also, I want to mention, as much as Chiron, and Meredith did a phenomenal Chiron series a few years ago, so please go check that out, as well as she has a Chiron workshop too. So if you're interested in Chiron, if you feel like Chiron is prominent in your life, in your chart, if you were born with Chiron on a planet, please go check out those resources. They are so, so helpful to understand your unique chart just even better, and your unique wound. But when we think about Chiron, it's not just a wound, right? It's not just healing the wound or what the wound was or what the past life trauma is. It's also a teacher. It's also a master. And so something here is teaching us, right? And maybe it looks like some, frankly, unfair or like, whoa, did you have to be so harsh, Aries Chiron? Advice that we're getting, something that's encouraging us to do it on our own, like make ourselves a little bit more vulnerable, make ourselves stand in a place of bravery and courage a little bit more. And that might feel kind of scary, right? But the moon in Gemini might say like, hey, you can do it. Actually, we believe in you. You have the tools you need. You have the data to back you up. You have the thing that will help you say what you want to say. It might look like more of an opportunity and less of like a big burden or a big issue to deal with. It can come in the form of you teaching yourself, you mastering a skill, you making headway on a skill that you're trying to practice, and suddenly it's like, oh, now I'm starting to understand. So that teaching element is also really important to this too. And I love that the moon is making this aspect to sort of assist and support Mars coming into that opposition. And so my air and fire signs, I think, would definitely be feeling this energy pretty prominently, especially if you're born in these late degrees. We're talking 24 to 26 degrees. So these last days of air or fire signs, you're definitely feeling this. Now for September 15th as well as 16th, the moon is going to enter into its home sign of Cancer, where it will be in the same sign as Jupiter in its exaltation. So this is nice, okay? Now, Jupiter expands everything it touches. So this might be that comfy feeling of home. Maybe it's nostalgia and sweet memories, sweet comforts, right, of home, getting to see your parents or having a sweet memory be shared. Just remembering too that Jupiter is going to expand everything. So those emotions, those feelings of defensiveness or needing security or insecurity, right, they might also be magnified around these couple of days. We've certainly been through something in this eclipse season. We're still very much in the midst of it. So this might need to be a time where you're just taking better care of your emotions. What I like is that Venus, we talked, previous day about the Chiron and the Mars. Venus has now moved into a positive aspect with that in Leo. So Leo, I think Leos really have an opportunity here to bring the sweet side of things. Like, do the Leo generosity, do the Leo love to people, take care of the tribe, take care of the pride, and shine your light beautifully. With Venus here, Leos are really getting a boost through so much of this month to like do what they do best and shine while doing it. And it might really be in support of whatever oppositions or relationship tensions you're seeing out in the world. When somebody, gets a really harsh grade or a tough teacher or a difficult situation, at school or in an environment where they're trying to understand and learn a skill, Leo can come in there and be their best cheerleader. So even if you don't have Leo in your chart, thinking about that high side of Leo, those qualities, how can we bring that warmth and love into the situation in a sense of compassion and care, right? Making room for those emotions, big and small, loud and quiet, and creating that safe space to just express ourselves creatively, outwardly, authentically, honestly. Like, we're trying to create this space of that, to do this healing work, to have those relationships really highlight, okay, we're all in this eclipse season. We're all growing together. We're all learning together. What is it we're growing? Can we do it together? Can we do it as a community and actually in union with one another, going toward a place that might look actually better and not terrifying? I hope to see that with this. I hope that the moon, as it travels through Cancer and is, bringing this emotional awareness and creating this safe space, I hope we can all collectively come together in a time like this as unified and in love and compassion. Okay, the next couple of days get a little heavy hitting. So on September 17th, we're going to have the moon enter the sign of Leo. So now it's co-present with the sign of Venus, kind of adding a little bit of a boost. We're adding that generosity. A Leo moon is, Meredith calls it the Santa Claus moon. So it's going to give and give and give and give. And that's everything from all of its big emotions to the big gifts and the extravagant fun. Okay. And also the drama. So we have that things might even get a little bit more heightened, emotionally heightened, right? And our Leos will probably benefit from that, as well as our fire signs. We're all feeling pretty passionate right now. And we have Mercury now whizzing past through the sign of Virgo. It's going to move the next day on September 18th into the sign of Libra, so out of its rulership. Now we're changing the vibe again. Remember, Mercury is ruling over our sun. It's also ruling over Uranus right now, and it's also ruling over the South Node, and all the focus around what it is we're purging and letting go of and shedding. So when Mercury moves, it's a big, big deal this season as we are entering these last days of Virgo season. But the thing I want to say about the 17th of September is Mercury is opposing Saturn. Womp womp. So this can be someone squashing our voice, squashing, getting into some sort of an issue with our car where we didn't meet, the rules, we didn't follow the guidelines, we didn't, make the driver's test or whatever it looks like. It can look like, the mind coming up against Saturn, whatever the law, the rule, the construct, you didn't follow the set of instructions correctly, and now you're dealing with a blown gasket. You just got your new computer and nothing's working and it's all stuck, right? All those good Saturn stuck and stifled words. But that's happening to Mercury. So this is how our thoughts are working. We might feel totally, creatively blocked here. We might feel like we're not able to say the thing we want to say, to speak up for ourselves. Again, thinking about Virgo when it gets pigeonholed into that service role and how it can kind of disappear and just be in the background, right? Mercury, our ruler, is getting squashed by Saturn. Now, something I want to say about this, every time we have an opposition or frankly any transit to Saturn now, we had Saturn in Aries this summer. We had the taste of what that's going to feel like. But once again, we're plummeting into Saturn in Pisces. Looks like rules that are really unclear. There are no walls in the ocean, okay? I mean, perhaps there are geologically, but I'm talking about trying to build a wall in the ocean is no easy task. And because water will erode it away. And so if we think about Saturn in Pisces, it's this could look like an authority figure or some set of rules that are really confusing, that are contradictory, that are all over the place, that are coming from nowhere. This can look like a sense of burden or responsibility from something that we can't actually concretize. So the burden of time as it passes, recognizing time has control over us and we have no control over time. But what is time, right? Our energy, that's another limit that we have, and we can't bottle our energy necessarily. So we're beholden to it. And that can be really, really hard when our minds are tired, We don't physically have the energy to keep going. So thinking about what controls our lives, what is the authority over us, that isn't quite clear, actually. This might look like also just not having our systems, our structures as in place as we thought, seeing the holes in the structure, like where's the water leaking out? That can be emphasized with this. We're going to have it with Mercury first, and then it's going to move swiftly into the Sun opposing Saturn as we get later into the season. And this opposition is already at play at September 17th. So we're feeling this mounting energy, and that could add to those feelings, those emphasized feelings of the moon in Leo, right? Where suddenly we're sharing our frustrations. We're a little bit more bombastic and dramatic about what's going on because we feel stifled, we feel stuck. Some of our signs, like our fire and our air signs, might be a little bit more expressive about it and want to talk about it more, want to share those emotions, share those feelings. And maybe my earth and water signs are really ready for a break right now. They're feeling the burden. They're feeling a lot. All this Virgo and opposing Pisces, all of my mutable signs really might need, frankly, if you're not taking the step back, life might be forcing you to. And that could feel really frustrating right now. Sagittarius wants to go, go, go. Gemini wants to learn, learn, learn. And when you're getting the kibosh on that, that's like, what is my life even amounting to right now? What is it all about? If I can't do those things, if I can't go seek out that knowledge and expand my world, like what is it all for? And Pisces and Virgo can get so burdened by this. This is heavy. So please, mutable signs, please take care of yourselves right now. Have some grace with yourselves. Recognize that like a lot of this internal strife that's stopping you is for a reason. It's inviting you not to seek the answers outward out here, but to go inward and do that inner work. Change those mental patterns, behaviors, and habits, and change, whatever systems are in place. If there is water leaking out of the boat, like where can you plug up some of those holes? So we have Mercury moving into Libra on September 18th. This is going to be Pacific time at about 3 a.m. So early that morning on the 18th. And then the next day on the 19th, Venus is going to be moving into Virgo. Now Venus, she was enjoying her time in Leo. She gets to be fun. She gets to be enthusiastic and dramatic and like live her life. Now she moves into Virgo, and Venus in Virgo gets pretty critical. She has a lot of advice to give. She has to make sure like the perfection here is almost like more emphasized, like mathematically, geometrically, like beautiful. I think of like a gemstone, right? When I think of Virgo and Venus together, like how pristine and perfect and from the earth that thing is, and how we look at it with such awe, right? So that can be a really beautiful energy. And it can also show up in the form of suddenly everybody has the advice on how to fix your life. And this is what I've done. And, be aware around this time too, that like some of these easy fixes might look really attractive too. Like you might get bought into like, oh, well, if I just buy this guide or, book a coaching session with this person, get this reading, like all of these things might look like, okay, this is the fix. This is the thing that's going to fix it. This is the thing that's going to set my system up. How can we maybe approach some of that more from the self and not necessarily like have to fork over a bunch of money or do service or work extra hard to find those solutions outside of ourselves? How can we maybe do that internal work first, sit in that place of quiet, of surrendering to our inner mess and looking at it for what it is without judgment, but with compassion, showing the love to ourselves, not with criticism or shame or guilt, but realizing we're trying to work on our own inner systems, right? I just would encourage that approach before, frankly, putting the trust into someone else to fix you or some teacher or master that's going to give you the key to understanding your life. Now, that's not to say to not go out and seek a mentor if that's something you need, right? That can be really helpful. We're on the path of self-mastery with this Venus and Virgo too. And so I don't mean to sound contradictory, but it's more about who are you putting your trust into? Are you looking for a quick fix or a long-term practice, right? Practice, I think, is such a great Virgo word too. It's once again, those little incremental steps. Now, Venus will be squaring Uranus. I like Venus and Uranus together. Venus kind of gets the hit, but Venus can soften Uranus a little bit. So maybe this looks like getting a piece of news or meeting somebody that suddenly inspires you. Maybe you get that piece of advice that was like, I didn't ask for that. I don't need that feedback. Or, oh, that's causing me to like second guess and question a lot of things. I'm going to uncover and oops, look, I found a mistake. So it's a trigger, right? The square is going to propel us. It's going to boost us, move us forward. It's prodding energy. Who wants to be prodded? Nobody wants to be prodded, especially Tauruses, especially Venus, right? Like nobody wants that. When this happens, though, we have to recognize that it's inspiring action. So when Venus and Uranus are meeting in these Mercury ruled signs, Mercury now having just moved into Libra. I know it's so much, guys, like it's 10-layer cake, but work with me here. I know. Rewind this and look back to it if you need to. Mercury is informing us to say like, hey, we're trying to strive for balance here. We're trying to strive for some sense of harmony, for finding beauty here. So maybe it's something that is going to liberate us from being in a sense of like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this is. I don't know where the problems are. And Venus says, I'm going to go and find them. I'm going to go and understand what's not working. I'm going to go get rid of those things, or I'm going to go solve the problem. I'm going to go practice the skill so that way I can attain this level of better balance. No matter what, remembering that we don't do sun sign astrology, right? The chart is made up of many things. This is all playing out in your own natal chart too. And these lessons are lifetime lessons that you're learning. This is why I love astrology. This is why I love working with Meredith. So, because she has so many reports online that you can go learn all about yourself and your own astrology. You know, I've been talking a lot about all these Virgo placements with Virgo season and not guilting yourself, not shaming yourself and speaking, ill of yourself. And I do want to encourage anybody listening who might be looking for a way to connect to that compassion and self-love a little deeper. There is a report that Meredith sells that is the child report. And even if you're not a child, I really recommend you get it because it kind of puts you in touch with little you. And you wouldn't tell little 4-year-old you maybe the things that you've been telling yourself lately. And how can we show that love and compassion to our little selves? And that is that inner child work. It's not just about letting the inner child run the show and, call the shots. I've got 2 little kids of my own. I know what a mess that would create, right? But when it comes to how we speak to ourselves and how we care for ourselves, like if we think about ourselves as that little child, this report might help you sort of contextualize what that little child in you really wanted and really saw and really experienced in the world, and just put you into closer contact with that. So I definitely recommend that report. I love that report as not only for myself as an astrologer, but also as a mother. So if you're a parent out there, it's a great one for your kids. And I just also want to emphasize that now Mercury having moved into Libra at 1-2 degrees of Libra, it's going to move really, really quick. It's going to make that pretty instantaneous trine to Uranus and Pluto in those air signs at 1 degrees of Gemini for Uranus and 1 degrees of Aquarius for Pluto. So once again, we're triggering these much greater collective themes, but now it's Mercury in Libra. So we're talking about finding that sense of justice with everything going on. What is fair, what is right, and what is balanced? Mercury is coming in to support that. So this could look like, a new discovery, a new insight, a new study that lends some support to, hey, we have to start operating and acting like this, or else like society is going to go a certain direction. It might look like something that comes out and realigns where we are as a society and gives us some hope into the beauty that the future might hold. So as we come into the next couple of days, this month does not end, guys. We're going to have the sun entering Libra. But before that happens, just before that happens, it's going to oppose Saturn at 28 degrees of Virgo. So all of those Saturnian themes, if you rewind a little bit to a couple days before when Mercury opposed, now we have our soul, our collective sun opposing Saturn. So Saturn kind of squashing our light a little bit with that uncertainty, with that like we're beholden to this greater power that we have no control over, and we have to realize we have to surrender, that we can't make the perfect system. It's kind of that like humbling kick to the legs like right before the season ends, except that at 29 degrees of Virgo, just hours before the equinox when it moves into Libra, we're going to have a solar eclipse. Oh my gosh. So this solar eclipse is opposing Saturn. This is really emphasizing all those Saturnian things I talked about. Go watch the Saturn playlist, by the way. Like Saturn is such a major player right now, like Saturn and Pisces playlist. You put those 2 archetypal energies together, you get what the major like antagonist of this month is. And that's not to demonize Saturn. Saturn is here to help us remember that we are the author of our own lives, that we hold the authority, right? Not necessarily all the control in the universe, but that we are responsible for our own things. Like, what do we take ownership of? What do we take responsibility of? Saturn is here to empower us through that journey of discovery of like, I can manage myself. Okay. So Saturn is a major player here. It's going to be coupled with that energy of Pisces, and it is staring down in relationship. So it's going to show up in relationships in opposition to all this Virgo energy. And with the solar eclipse, right? Solar eclipses can look like major rises and falls in power collectively. This is a time of like tumultuous change, okay? And I've already talked about eclipse season. You don't know who you're going to meet. The portals are open, right? Souls are leaving and souls are entering here. We have experiences that are happening that are closed doors, open doors, like fated decisions. So journaling about this can be really, really beneficial, because when you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I had no idea what little change I was making here, but look at how it's affected this ripple pattern for the rest of my life. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this is at 29 degrees. Meredith has a phenomenal video. It's the 0, 15, and 29 degrees. She talks about the anaretic 29th degree, but just remembering the basics, which is if you have anything at 29 degrees, 29 is the last degree of the zodiac sign. The light of that zodiac sign is fading. There's an element of loss here. Even though it's a new moon, technically, we're talking about eclipse, right? The sun's light is eclipsed by the moon. And so the moon is sitting in front of the earth and blocking that sunlight from hitting the earth. So we have that like element of a shadow, that element of fear and crisis that our ancestors felt when they saw a solar eclipse in the sky. And then also we have this element of the 29th degree of loss, of endings, of closing chapters. So even though we had that with the lunar eclipse, we're getting this echoed again through this solar eclipse. Please be so kind and gentle to yourself. Like, look at your inner child with compassion and love around this time. Recognize that like when these painful things are occurring, it is a chance to really show the side of ourselves, like what we're really made of, right? All the perfect systems in the world may not withstand, may not last through crisis. And it's okay. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to let yourself unburden yourself with having to adhere to a structure, to a perfect health routine, right? Life is going to throw crisis at us at every curve. So can we rest back on something that serves us, that nurtures us, that heals us? And can we take care of ourselves through those crises? So that way, when we emerge out of them, we're ever stronger. Can we make meaning of that? I will say with this as well, we're experiencing Mars at the anaretic degree of Libra as well. So there might be this real sense of like, what is fairness? Does fairness even exist? Is justice just this idea that we talk about that we never actually achieve? What is balance? Like, my life feels so out of balance. I can't move balance. I feel so out of balance. These are all Mars kind of in that crisis of like, what is Libra? And it's our energy. It's our passion, our fire. Like we might feel like we suddenly need to fight, like truly fight, like war god Mars for justice. Okay. This can look like, something in your own life that you're like, I'm finally going to go after that thing. In fact, I do an astrology podcast actually with a couple friends of mine. And I talked about this energy of this day being like the snap. Okay. So like things have just been piling on and piling on and piling on. And you get that like one person that just like doesn't believe in you, or you get that one straw that breaks the camel's back and you say, that's it. I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to try. I'm going to just prove them all wrong. Okay. Like that is what I feel like this is. It's like, fine, I'm going to force this. I'm going to go into it anyway. I've had enough, right? I'm going to put up the boundary. I'm going to tell everyone to like leave me alone. So I just, this could be an insanely powerful day, right? A very, very potent day with the solar eclipse. Solar eclipse energy also often is like around banishing, getting rid of, saying, I'm done, I'm through. So that could be really empowering for you. How could you potentially use that? That's up to you. Please be kind to each other and safe out there, right? During this time, really be mindful of your safety because of the portals being open. But this could be something that is a true catalyst for a whole new reality going forward. So use it wisely. And with that, we have the sun moving into Libra, drawing all of our attention to, what is balance? What is fairness? What is equality? What is harmony? What is beauty even from? The moon will also be passing through Libra because they're both going to move into Libra at the same time because they're so close together, right? And even though we have this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, immediately we're met with this. So what is the equinox? What is the balance of night and day, of feminine, masculine, of all these energies that we see as polarities? How can we integrate them into a deeper understanding together? See beauty, see myself reflected in others. How am I projecting? How is the world a mirror? We're immediately met with this energy with the sun and the moon and Mercury now all in the sign of Libra, and it's opposing Neptune. So this might be really confusing. This might be something that isn't quite tangible yet. If we're just at the very first breath of what this air sign looks like, it's standing in a trine to those big planets we talked about, Uranus and Pluto, which are both, yes, moving backwards, but it's all asking us to integrate this wisdom inside of ourselves. We've been witness now to so many of these changes. So what are we going to do about it? What's it telling us on the inside? And Mars has just moved into Scorpio. This is tough because what's Mars going to do first? It's going to talk to all of our planets at the beginning of signs. Namely, it's going to square Pluto. Mars square Pluto is a tough energy because it's in a closing square. This could look like a psychological crisis of sorts, like an internal thing. But we may see this play out as, potentially a psychotic break, potentially, Mars and Pluto, when they're together, this can look like violence. This can look really scary. When we consider the mental state of what perpetuates violence, what does that look like? We might be faced with this sort of injustice right away. Scorpio too, right? Mars in Scorpio. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And if we consider Mars in its feminine or yin or reflective expression in a water sign, right? That really changes Mars's behavior, okay? Traditionally when we look at Mars in Aries, that's very fiery and I'm on the front lines, I'm the warrior. But now we pull it back and we make it a strategic, focused, highly even obsessive, narrow point. I think of a sniper when I think of Mars in Scorpio, somebody very far away with that just tiny scope of vision that just zeroes in on it and is able to nail it, okay? Or I also think of a general in a war. So it's not the guy on the front lines, but he's way out here and he sees all the plans and he's making those calculated movements, those powerful plays, right, in the background. And he's really the guy in charge. So when we think about Mars in this placement, whatever that thing maybe that made us snap or set into motion, this whatever this new reality is, and this might not be of your control, right? This might just be the new reality. Whatever that looks like for you, we're having to juxtapose that focus, that okay, I'm going to just drill down and do it with all of these questions around what does equality even look like? What does harmony and beauty and peace even mean? Is it meaningful at all? Right? Okay. These are heavy themes, right? This is no simple eclipse season. My God. So as we enter September 23rd and then 24th, the moon will exit the sign of Libra over those 2 days and then move into the sign of Scorpio by September 24th, where it will be conjunct Mars. So Moon and Mars together is usually pretty tough. Really be mindful around your bodies around this time. That obsessive nature, are you getting possessive of people? Are you getting super jealous? Where is that internal passion fueling you towards? Is it a total just deep dive into something? Maybe it looks very investigatory. Maybe you're having to really focus in and study something. That could be very beneficial. But Pluto is still in a square to Mars, and now the moon is triggering that square. So now it becomes really intimate. It becomes really personal. So you might feel wronged by somebody. You might feel slighted, or it might just feel like the world is out to get you. The trauma just feels so much all of a sudden. I'm having to face so much that I'm dealing with, and how do I make my mental state actually cope with this because I'm having trouble. Scorpio, certainly. While having Mars in your sign isn't as hard as maybe other signs because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. So Mars is happier in Scorpio. It's in its rulership. And having the moon in Scorpio is not as comfortable. It's very guarded and protected. It doesn't want to be anyone's victim, right? It doesn't want to be targeted by anybody. And now we're coupling that with its ruler. So we might feel on the defensive, actually. We might really feel like we're having to put the walls up. We're having to build the defenses and scope out who's in charge, because we want to know what the power dynamic is in order to protect ourselves and not be too vulnerable, close off. Being aware around this time that like we might feel a lot more guarded about our emotions, ourselves, our plans, our dreams, and that others are likely going to feel that way too, and that everybody might just feel a little bit on edge. But remembering also, like, what is Scorpio energy? It's meant to transform. It's meant to walk in the darkness with us and comfort us by meeting us in those really hard places. So when I think about what this could look like beneficially, first of all, it's in a sextile to Venus in Virgo. So like I was saying about, if you're having to really study something, really understand it, like deeply, thoroughly, go on those rabbit holes of curiosity and like unpack things, to bring a deeper sense of understanding. And this can look, like an actual study of a subject, mastery of a skill. It could look like deepening a relationship and like discussing openly trauma and discussing past or baggage that somebody has, or just things that they've gone through. That can be that energy. And then Venus adding that sweetness, adding that, like, let's do this for the purpose of bringing better health and understanding where these triggers and traumas come from, or understanding where our psychological, wounds are coming from. It's going to hurt, right? It's going to be painful, likely. Anything that touches Mars is going to be heat. So those wounds might get exposed a little bit. But when we think about when we bandage something, right? Allowing a wound to breathe, allowing it to heal. We don't want to just keep messing with it. We allow it to properly do its process. And we look at it, we assess it, we make sure it's not festering or getting, irritated, getting poisoned or anything. And so I kind of look at it that as we have to examine the wound clearly. We have to see what's hurting, but now we can better understand it. We can better see it for what it truly is. This could really be the truth coming out, like the refined actual truth in clear form coming out, and us reconciling with whatever that meaning is, seeing the roots of it within our own psychology. And here's what I love about this too. So the next day, on September 25th, we now have the moon moving into a sextile with the south node and a trine with the north node. So whatever these insights that we might be getting are helping us in our evolutionary growth. They're aiding us on this path forward to say, okay, all these things that might have served me in the past, I have to let go of them if I want to actually grow, if I want to actually achieve the things that I'm looking for or I'm striving for. I need to, understand this better. And now I can take these steps forward with a sense of confidence, and Scorpio, focus, right? The moon might not feel comfortable sharing all of that information. So if you're feeling, like you just kind of want to process this on your own, that's okay. It might still feel confusing. We still have the sun in an opposition to Neptune, so that can make things really hazy. Also, remembering what I said earlier this month, like, we're not putting our trust entirely into somebody who's going to fix all the problems. It's more about seeing the clarity of what the problem even might look like, where the wound really comes from, what the source or the origin of that thing was. That's going to help us. But we don't need to invest in or put all of our trust in somebody who's going to potentially make us, frankly, a lot more wounded. Somebody who is out to get us, make a quick buck, and dilute us into a sense of safety when, suddenly we're feeling vulnerable. Please be really careful around this time too, that you're not getting swindled or frankly even drugged. Like, pay attention to your drinks. Don't drive under the influence. Neptune's power here is also very strong because it's opposing the sun in those early degrees of Libra. The sun being in Libra, Neptune is in those early degrees of Aries. So it really might be coming into this sense of sobering clarity, right? We're meeting in relationship this, where have we been deluding ourselves? Where have we been totally just clueless, right? We kind of take off the glasses at this point and we see things for what they are. And it's helping us move forward with our lives. And from that point on September 26th, the moon is going to be in those final degrees of Scorpio. So like any Scorpio transit, this is one of true transformation here, right? Like the beginning, we're kind of met with whatever this confrontation, this irritation is, this flare up of something, this intense focus is, or obsessiveness is. And as it moves through, we're starting to integrate this knowledge and understand like, oh, like this is how we're going to progress forward. And finally, the moon is going to end its time in Scorpio by trining the North Node and then Saturn, making that trine to Saturn on September 26th. So now the moon is saying, okay, I've learned this, I've integrated this, I see how it's serving me. How can I create a structure, create a set of rules around this that like guides me forward, presents that form of foundation now. And because Saturn is in Pisces, that might just look like really forming a new faith in something, a new belief, a new understanding that just puts us into greater relationship, right relationship with the universe and what that looks like. Maybe it's your relationship to God. It could look like your relationship to whatever greater power that you see and that you respect, or just universe or spirit. It could also put you into contact with that as well. So, if you're looking to make contact with ancestors or with angels or spirit guides, like that might be some source of this clarity, right? Because as the moon moves out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, it's then going to trine Neptune, which Neptune is that divine source. So around these dates of September 26th into September 27th, we're having a lot of these downloads, whether physically out in the world through the knowledge that we're gaining, through what we're interfacing with, or it could come from a more divine spiritual place. So we're in these early days of this moon phase and all of this greater understanding, this depth, because it's Scorpio moon, is bringing us this sense of like, okay, this is the path that I'm on. I'm understanding this deeper. I'm integrating this wisdom further. And now I know where this wound behavior, this pattern is actually coming from. So definitely, of course, this is benefiting my water signs. I think, yeah, Cancers, Pisces and Scorpio, because you have the moon and you have the trine from the moon to Saturn, right? Like that's some more harmonious flowing water like energy. My earth signs, right? Venus is hanging out in Virgo. So Venus is giving Virgo a little bit of a boost here, as well as Capricorn. I think you could really benefit from this. I'm not going to say Taurus as much because all the Mars and Scorpio that you're going to have for the next few weeks and the moon in Scorpio, that makes Taurus's placement a bit harder. The moon is as far away from its exaltation as it can be. And so it feels like that safety and security might be really far away. It might just feel a little too dark and too scary. You don't want to go there. Where can we maybe take some baby steps? Is where I would ask. Is there a benefit to going there? Or is it a time where you really do just need to say like, I can only take so many doses of advice and reality and clarity, and now I'm going to step back and give myself a break to process those things, and I'll reintegrate when I feel ready. Okay, and so on September 27th through the 28th, we're going to have the moon moving through Sagittarius once again. So here we are back, okay, and it's going to trine Neptune, as I said, and then later it's going to trine up with Chiron in Aries. This moon, I mean, we've been kind of going through the darkness of whatever these last couple days before that in Scorpio have been this focus and obsession. Now the moon in Sagittarius is saying like, okay, but you know, the truth, whatever that is, like now I need to understand my place in the world and what that truth looks like. And, you know, how does what I've just discovered, this transformation I've just gone through, how does that meet up with, how does that hold up against the collective, you know, knowledge, you know? So this can look like getting inspired by a different culture, by some form of higher understanding. So maybe you're looking into, I'm going to learn more about this subject. I'm going to dive into like what the law looks like. If we think about our moral constructs and structures within society, right? Like having a deeper understanding of how that all works and who the heads of our religions are, our law is, like the moon in Sagittarius is trying to understand that greater sense of truth. So once it integrates and understands the internal, now it starts looking external. It wants to understand its place in the world. This can be especially healing because we're in this trine with Chiron. So finding mentors and teachers that can aid you with this, guides, right? Asking for the advice. Venus is in Virgo. She's ready to give advice. She's ready to tell you what to let go of. So this could be a great time as you've gone through this, like remembering to check in with people that you trust, whether that be, you know, a mentor or teacher or just like a friend that is somebody that you can look to give you a real piece of advice, that truth, that clarity. Have I been spending too much time in my own head? Am I on the right track here? Like, that can be just sort of a time to orient yourself, right, with the greater world. I think this could be invigorating for my fire signs. Like, all of the like watered down burden energy is just kind of dousing their fire. So this is like, okay, like, what do we do about it? Like, where do we go? What's happening? How do we plan for this? What are we understanding and learning and bringing and making out of this? And so I think my Aries and my Leo and my Sagittarius are kind of jiving with this like new boost of energy over these couple of days as we're wrapping up this crazy month. And just remembering that my mutable signs, of course. So once again, that's Gemini, that's Virgo, that's Sagittarius, and Pisces, because you're dealing with the nodal axis, you're dealing with Saturn. Venus is approaching her conjunction with the South Node. My mutable signs are not having as comfortable of a time with this. So Sagittarius, you might be really wanting to like, can we get to the next thing? Can we move on from this? Like, I'm really ready to move on. And you're still finding yourself a little bit stuck, Saturnian stuck, or having to get out of that comfort zone and do the thing that you don't want to do, that squashes the dream, that makes it too real and too 3D tangible, right? Remembering that you're not necessarily stuck forever, and this too shall pass, right? But also, this is an invitation to find those answers not externally, but internally. Surrender to that mess inside a little bit and see what lies there to be discovered. In our final days of September, we're going to have the moon in Capricorn. So as it enters Capricorn, it is going to square Saturn. It is going to square Neptune. So that's kind of bringing in this internal psychological awareness of, you know, what is real, what is all too real and sobering, and what is unreal. What is the delusion look like? How do I want to escape, frankly, from all of the heaviness? And while Capricorn, right? Capricorn could look like, I really want to escape from dealing with all of this, you know, subconscious and unknown, and I just want to get back into what I know is real, you know, or it can also look like planning for all the things that potentially could go wrong. So be careful there not to go too down the rabbit hole and try to make, again, the perfect, you know, it's contingency plan, because you're going to get surprised. Things are going to pop up. Crisis is going to happen. You know, that moon in Capricorn, I think because it's now in a sextile to Mars, there's again that deeper sense of focus. There's a pursuit of something that is empowering, that is meant to like help you rise above through all this and persist through it, climb up the mountain step by step, no matter what, no matter how hard it gets. With Neptune there, it's like remembering that carrot at the end, like the whatever the summit at the top of the mountain is, like that's what I'm headed for. So keep that goal, that mission in mind through all of this tumultuousness, and realize like these challenges we're getting, these are all invitations to understand that dream further, to let it fuel us further, to clarify it into what it really is and know what it is we're striving for. And again, that doesn't have to be some like crazy fame, success dream. This can look like, I really just want the best, most healthy relationship I can manifest. This can look like, I would really just like a comfortable room to sleep in, you know? I would really like to write a book. I would really like to read a book. I would really like to just feel like I could be at home with my kids and feel like I'm doing a good job being a parent and caring for and providing for my family. And I go out to bed at the end of the night with some gratitude. Oh, all this energy in Pisces, like one of the quickest ways to ease some of these symptoms of stress and burden is to remember to be grateful, to find those things that we can have some gratitude for at the end of the night. Do your gratitudes when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. You know, with everything changing and shifting and us questioning so much of what's going on and having to integrate it all psychologically and make sense of the confusion, grounding ourselves in what is here, what is present, and what am I grateful for can really be a balm in times like this, and taking, you know, it one step at a time. I hope that the moon in Capricorn, as we see this at these last 2 days of this month of September on the 29th and 30th, that it can help reground us into, I am climbing this mountain, right? And maybe I don't quite know where it's actually going, but I have faith that it's going somewhere. And Aren't I grateful for the things that are real and tangible and like right now, whatever gifts that those might be? They're all helping us in this evolutionary path. Each challenge, each obstacle is a learning opportunity, even when it is so, so painful. It shows us what we're made of. So what are you made of? Is what I want to ask this September. It's going to challenge us, right? As we close out the month, we're kind of easing out of that eclipse season. I really see September, again, it's been an honor to present, what I'm interpreting from the charts to you guys for this month, because I feel that many of us will be forever changed by this month. And I genuinely, truly hope that whatever those changes that you are facing are, shape you into a happier and more wonderful and more successful, fabulous version of who you are. And that you prove to yourself just how tough you are and how smart you are. Remembering to connect with that inner child with that sense of compassion and love through all of this. Astrology is such a phenomenally empowering tool when we can let it illuminate truth in our lives and remember the power we have, the magic we hold inside of us, each one of you out there. So thank you so much for giving me the space and time to present September 2025 to you through the transits. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was enlightening. Please share in the comments all your thoughts, all your ideas. Meredith, of course, will be back. She's busy in France right now on her retreat, and she will be home soon to present more wonderful astrology to you. And of course, she has so many resources for free on her YouTube channel, as well as at soulnavigation.com. So please go check that out. Thank you so much, and have a blessed September of 2025.